The second, her boss leaned down to grab the keys. I'd just dropped at the company Christmas party. Everything changed. His fingers closed around the key ring, and his gaze fixed on the small silver charm attached to it. The one engraved with the words, "Always E&M." His expression froze completely. He straightened up slowly, turned his head toward my fiancée, Emily, and said clearly enough that several people nearby heard him, "These belong to you, don't they?" The room didn't literally stop moving, but it felt like it did. In that single heartbeat, the life I thought I was living cracked apart. I'm 34, based in Seattle, working as a senior project manager at a mid-sized architecture firm downtown. Emily and I had been together for 9 years. We met during our final year at the University of Washington, bonded over late-night study sessions for a brutal structures course. After graduation, we moved in together almost immediately. 4 years ago, I proposed to her under the cherry blossoms on campus, and ever since then, our weekends had revolved around planning a future that felt stable and certain, the same way I imagined the buildings I helped design would be. But if I'm honest, the distance between us hadn't started that night. It had been growing quietly for a long time. Emily began staying later at work, always citing deadlines. Our Saturday morning coffee routine slowly disappeared, replaced by her scrolling through emails while I sat across from her, pretending not to notice. When I reached for her hand in bed, she'd say she was exhausted and turn away. I convinced myself it was the stress of her new senior marketing position at a tech company across town. I made excuses because they were easier than asking questions. The party itself was held in the grand ballroom of the Fairmont Olympic. The chandeliers were wrapped in warm white lights. A jazz quartet played softly near the bar, and the room buzzed with holiday energy. Everyone looked polished and happy. Emily was wearing a deep emerald dress that caught the light every time she moved. I remember feeling proud, introducing her to coworkers as my fiancée, my arm around her waist as we swayed to a Sinatra cover. That's when my keys slipped out of my shallow suit pocket and hit the floor. Before I could react, her boss, David Harrington, the VP of marketing, tall, silver-haired, always impeccably calm, crouched down and picked them up. He turned the key ring in his hand, and that was when he saw the charm. The small sterling silver disc I'd had custom-made for her 29th birthday. Always E&M. The M stood for Marcus, my name. I'd added it because she used to joke that E could stand for anyone. She'd laughed, kissed me, and clipped it onto her keys right away. She wore it every day, or so I thought. David's eyes shifted from the keychain to Emily. She was a few steps away, mid-conversation. But the moment she noticed what he was holding, all the color drained from her face. He didn't hand the keys to me immediately. Instead, he extended them toward her. "This is yours, isn't it, Emily?" he asked, his voice calm, almost careful. The music kept playing, but the people closest to us went silent. I felt the atmosphere change instantly. Emily stared at the keys like they might explode. She didn't reach for them. David then turned to me and placed the keys in my palm. "These are yours, Marcus," he said politely. His tone was professional, but there was something else in his eyes. Sympathy, maybe. I looked down at the engraving, then back at Emily. She couldn't look at me. Someone nearby murmured, "I've seen her with that keychain before." Another voice chimed in agreement. The truth landed slowly and painfully. Emily no longer had that charm on her keys. I'd noticed weeks ago that her key ring looked different, simpler. She'd told me she loved the gift. I'd believed her. We were surrounded by colleagues, friends, people who had celebrated our engagement with us. Emily finally spoke softly. "Marcus, can we step outside?" I couldn't move. I stood there holding my keys, feeling exposed and foolish. David quietly excused himself and walked away. We ended up in a dim hallway near the coat check. The music was muffled, the carpet absorbing our footsteps. Emily folded her arms tightly and stared at the floor. "Explain," I said. My voice surprised me with how steady it sounded. She took a deep breath. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." Her eyes filled with tears. "David and we've been close for a while. He's been mentoring me, and it just happened."
"How long?"
She hesitated. 8 months. 8 months. While I was paying wedding deposits. While I was picking out tuxedos. While I was sleeping alone. "Close how?" I asked. After a pause, she said quietly, "Physically and emotionally. All of it." I waited for remorse, for panic. Instead, she said, "I didn't know how to tell you. I kept thinking I'd sort my feelings out. You gave him my gift," I said. She nodded. He liked it. He said it meant something. Meaningful. The same word she'd used with me. "Do you love him?" I asked. She hesitated again. "I think I do. I'm sorry, Marcus. You've always been steady, safe. But the spark, it's been gone for a long time. Steady, safe. Words that suddenly sounded like failures. You let me stand in there calling you my fiancé," I said, "while you were sleeping with your boss. I didn't plan for the keys to fall," she replied weakly. I laughed once, bitter and short. She reached for me and I stepped back. "Don't!" "I never wanted to hurt you," she said. "But you did," I replied. "Every day for 8 months." She looked tired but not desperate. She'd already let go. "Is the wedding over?" I asked. "Yes," she whispered. 9 years reduced to one word. I nodded, walked back into the ballroom, collected my coat, and left. I went home alone. The apartment felt hollow. Her things were everywhere. Our calendar still marked wedding plans. I sat in the dark and waited to cry. Nothing came. The weeks that followed were brutal in quiet ways. Canceling vendors, dividing furniture. She moved in with David. I lost weight. Barely slept. Replayed that moment over and over. Friends said I deserved better, but the truth was harder. I'd ignored the signs. I'd mistaken comfort for love. One night, packing her last box, I found the empty keychain box with my note still inside. "Always E&M. You're my home." I sat on the floor and finally cried. But something shifted. I realized I wasn't grieving her. I was grieving the version of myself who thought love meant settling. I stopped watching her life. I started reclaiming mine. I joined a climbing gym, took a solo trip, started therapy, not to blame her, but to understand myself. 6 months later, I ran into them at an event. They were together, calm, familiar. I said hello. We exchanged polite words. I walked away feeling nothing. Walking home that night, I understood the lesson wasn't about betrayal. It was about self-respect. Sometimes the moment that breaks you is the one that finally wakes you up. I'm single now, whole, and when I love again, it will be because I'm chosen, clearly and fully. That's the justice I needed.